I'm sure you are sharing your views and comments by tweeting at hashtag CDS2022. Going forward, we will have the first corporate presentation from VMware India. I would request Mr. Vinay Bhat, Director, Networking and Security, VMware India, to share his presentation. Vinay has been heading the Network and Security Business Unit for VMware India since February 2019. He joined VMware in April 2011 and has been instrumental in driving several large projects such as private cloud, hybrid cloud, VDI, and enterprise mobility management. Prior to joining VMware, Vinay worked with Sun Microsystems for 3 years and was responsible for driving their business across diverse sectors including IT, ITES, manufacturing, and several research organizations through Unix systems, high performance computing, and VDI platform. Vinay earned a degree in Bachelor of Engineering in Electronics from Sardar Patel College of Engineering, Mumbai in 2003 and holds an MBA from SP Jain Institute of Management and Research.
With this, now I would like to request Mr. Vinay Bhat, Director, Networking and Security, VMware India, to offer his presentation.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. And welcome to the Zero Trust Security session today. My name is Vinay Bhat, like I was introduced. I am the Director, Network and Security with VMware India. And Zero Trust Security is something which is not new to VMware. But the way I want to do this session is, I want to probably break down some of the myths in Zero Trust Security, do a quick fact check, and then talk about why VMware for Zero Trust Security. And then obviously, if VMware can deliver that Zero Trust Security, how do we really go ahead and deliver that Zero Trust Security for our customers? So without much ado, let me quickly jump into this. So like I said, I want to do a quick fact check, right? We all have heard about Zero Trust Security, and Zero Trust Security today is almost like an abused word. But so I wanted to first define what a Zero Trust Security is, and then kind of delve deeper into it. So what's, and I'll probably give you a couple of seconds to look at this man and ask you, do you know this guy, right? Some of the veterans in the industry who actually practice Zero Trust Network or Zero Trust Security probably would know this guy and heard about him in past. But he is none other than a guy called John Kindewag. He was a consultant. He was working with Forrester Consulting, and he was the person who actually coined this term called Zero Trust Security in 2010. Way back 12 years. Obviously, he didn't know that we were going to be hit by pandemic. He didn't know that we were going to be in a situation where we'll actually discuss in such a detail and really go about implementing Zero Trust Security. So thanks, John, so much for giving us this concept. And VMware is not new to security, right? So let me give you some of the articles that were published in past. So VMware security is one of the best kept IT secrets. I'm not sure, if the audience on the call has seen this article or read this before. So VMware is largely known to be an infrastructure company, delivering solutions like private cloud, virtualization, desktop virtualization, so on and so forth. But you'll all be surprised that, in all these infrastructure elements that we deliver, security is one of the most integral part, and security has been intrinsic to whatever VMware delivers. And that's why if you're using a VMware product today, there is a very, very high chance, 9 out of 10 times, there will be security enabled in it, which means you are safe to use VMware products. It's very, very safe to use VMware either on cloud or on-prem. And that's what this article talks about. This is another article that came in, like a year back, where VMware actually mentioned about $1 billion investment into this business. Now you can imagine if a company of VMware, investing $1 billion security in security business, which clearly shows the intent from VMware, and obviously it clearly shows that VMware is one of the largest revenue drivers. Security is one of the largest revenue drivers for VMware. So it's a significant element for VMware. Now, how does VMware do this? There were certain organic and inorganic things that happened in the past. And some of the things that happened in the past is, one is last line. One of the acquisition that we did in very recently, it talks about NTA NDR. Another acquisition that we did was Carbon Black, which is an EDR solution, and none other than a VeloCloud solution, which is an SD-WAN solution. The reason I wanted to highlight this was, and some of you guys might ask us, VMware is a late entrant into security and why VMware and so forth. The reason I wanted to highlight this was, whatever we do into security is leaders in their individual element. If you look at NT-NDR, we are leaders there. If you look at EDR, we are leaders there. And if you look at SD-WAN, we are leaders there. So we are, to all our customers, we are bringing this best of breed solution all together and then helping you deliver the zero trust security. Now, this is just a time map of how these acquisitions have happened. And you realize that, our securities journey started in 2012, almost 10 years back. And, the journey has been really, really successful because we've been delivering security since then into every infrastructure element that we've been giving to our customers. Now, this is one of the webinars that we did on 15th of December. The guy here on right on the top is none other than John Kinderwag. And obviously the other two gentlemen are from VMware, Bisham and Elton. And the diagram on the left. So, this was a question that was asked to John. So John, in 2010, when you envisaged zero trust security, what did you have in mind? And, why do you think that zero trust security could really help? And the diagram on the left is something that John himself drew. The elements in red are the threat actors. The elements in blue are the data center elements, and the element in green is something which is the zero trust element that is helping protect from the threat actors. Now, obviously, looking at this diagram, I felt probably, we are all in APJ timing, India timing. It was too late for him in US. He was probably a little drowsy, and the diagram doesn't seem so fine. But no worries, I'm going to be delving into those elements of zero trust security into my further slides. So why VMware for zero trust security, right? And why are we talking so much? If you talk to any of the VMware, sales guys or SEs or, our engineers and so on and so forth, you will see that we are talking more and more about zero trust security. And why VMware to talk about zero trust security? Again, like I said, while Weaver being one of the hidden gems or hidden secrets in security, this is something which is very, very astonishing. We have 30,000 plus security customers over the globe. And we've been tracking almost 8.4 trillion security events per week. And some of the other stats that, it's there for you to watch. For example, we've stopped 1.1 million ransomware attacks in the last 90 days. 20 terabyte of firewall, internal firewall is something that VMware can deliver. And that helps you reduction in firewall rules. So we have service-defined firewall elements, we have NT-NDR, and we have all those elements, and I'm going to talk about it. And they're all leaders in their own form. So even if I have to take out one element of my zero trust security and put forth for an evaluation, you would realize it's a leader in its own form. So what's zero trust security again? And John did try to draw a diagram there. And I was also, after that webinar that I attended from John, I was trying to find myself what is zero trust security and what are the three components of zero trust security. The three clear components of zero trust security. First is user and application authentication. Clearly, when you talk about zero trust and security, you need to know what you need to secure, right? And what you need to secure is the users, is the application actually, the data and the application where it is. So you need to and John calls it as the protection surface, right? And the protection surface has to be as small as possible so that you can protect it very, very tightly. And then where does this protection surface gets access from? It gets access from endpoint, it gets access from the cloud, it gets access from your workload, it gets access from everywhere. And that's why your user and device authentication becomes very, very critical from a zero trust security. And last but not the least is trust. Who do you trust? Who do you give access to, and whose access do you stop? Those are the three components of zero trust security. And we'll talk a little detail into that. So why is zero trust security catching so much of action these days? And why are people, so, getting mad about implementing zero trust security into the data center? So if you look at a typical traditional model, and, this is not like 10 years, 15 years down the line, but this is also even, maybe like a 3-year or a 4-year, just before pandemic. Typically, the traditional model was your applications, which had 3 layers, which is app, web, and database, was typically confined to a data center. And then you had a firewall there, which used to kind of protect all your applications. And where was this application getting access? It was either getting access by the branches, or they were getting access by the users on their mobile devices at home, in form of your email or in form of your EMM solution and so on and so forth. What changed? We saw this happening, right? We saw some of the critical applications in customers' data center got broken down into microservices. We saw containers, we saw Kubernetes coming into customers' data center and breaking down the monolith, which was app, web, and dev, DB, into several microservices architecture. So now an application is not just VMs. It could be a physical layer where they could reside the database. It could be a virtual layer where a middleware or an application server could be. And the last but not the least, the web element, which could also be a Kubernetes. So you would find an application in all these elements, and you need to make all of this work, without compromising security. Now, where is your data center? Now, the data center is also, the lines started getting blurred, right? Because customers started adopting cloud. They started adopting cloud from IaaS perspective, from SaaS perspective, from PaaS perspective. And that's how the data centers started spreading around. And then last but not the least, which is something that we are all doing, right? I'm presenting it from my home. You're probably watching it from your home. So we started accessing all of this from all possible networks. We started accessing from our 5G, from our broadband networks, on my iPads, on your laptops, on your mobile phones, and wherever. So basically what happened was all of this now started becoming very, very complex. In 2010, I'm sure when John envisaged about zero trust security, I'm fairly certain this is not what he had in mind. But now this is what the situation, and typically the trusted parameter has dissolved. So if you still have that firewall in your data center, God help you, because that's not where your data is. That's not where all the access is coming from. Your data is now spread across multiple clouds, and the access is spread across multiple locations. That's what has helped our malicious activity or ransomwares, right? So now, because the attack surface is so much, your protection surface is still small. Your protection surface is still where your application data lies. But look at where your attack surface is. Now, the attack could come through the users who's accessing your application through their mobile devices or laptops, or those attacks could actually be homegrown. You must have heard about something called a supply chain attacks, right? Where the attacks are in the form of the upgrades, the DLLs, the exe files, and they come in through the legit ports and the legit IP addresses. And once you install it, boom, it kind of encrypts your application and it takes it away. So how do you achieve zero trust in this format, right? So again, the security, like I said, was confined to your data center. If you still have only a firewall there, I really pray for you. But if that is what your security strategy is, you need to widen your security strategy for zero trust security today. And what is that zero trust security? A zero trust security is don't trust anything from an IT perspective, right? Don't trust the user who's actually accessing your application from home. Don't trust the device from which is accessing your application. Don't trust the network that he is using to access your application. Don't trust the cloud. Don't trust your data center. Don't trust any element, because if somebody believes that he can be 100% secure, I would really want to meet that person. But like they say, securing your data center, or getting your data center attacked is not in your hand, but securing your data center or seeing to it that attack doesn't spread is something is in your hand. So how do you really confine it? Is by not trusting anything. And that's what zero trust security is. So don't trust any element of your data center, and have security mechanism, have security checks. Now, this is a very, very important chart here, because zero trust security is almost like an elephant. Everybody, somebody touches the leg, somebody touches the tail, somebody touches the trunk, and they probably feel they've got a hang of the entire elephant. But this is the real elephant. The elephant is, you need to protect your VMs, you need to protect your microservices, you need to protect your devices, you need to protect your network, you need to protect your laptops, you need to protect your cloud, you need to protect every damn thing which is there in your IT today. And that's what achieving zero trust will help you to do. And again, if I have to now break it down and help you how to achieve it, there are two key elements in this, right? One is your user to cloud access. How do you secure your user to cloud access? And you must have heard about elements like SASE and other things. They call themselves a zero trust network access, ZTNA, and so on and so forth. So one of the elements of securing your user to cloud is there. And the second is the app to app access. Because like I said, you cannot stop a threat coming into your data center, but the moment it is there in your data center, you can stop it from not spreading. You can stop it, you can contain it and not allow it to spread to other elements of data center. So how do you give app-to-app security, and that's what is called Zero Trust Application Access. So ZTNA and ZTAP, these are the key two elements of Zero Trust security for any customer to be able to look at. And these are very high-level elements, and I'll deep dive into this to further help you how you can really go and do Zero Trust security. And the piece in the middle, right? The visibility, risk analysis, orchestration, and API. This is very, very important because you can secure only those many elements that you can see. So if you cannot see, if you don't have visibility to all these elements, there is no way you will be able to define a security policy and secure it, right? And the only when you have a visibility, then you can do a risk analysis. You can see a particular element, a particular behavior, and do risk analysis and figure out if it's a risky behavior or not. And last but not the least, the orchestration. You need to build automation part of this because the number of elements that you just saw in my previous chart, if you had to have a person doing all of this manually, it's going to be a humongous task. And then, obviously the manual errors that can creep into it. So you need to have an orchestration layer. You need to have an automation layer that does automation for all of these elements in your data center and help you deploy that Zero Trust security. And again, API, there could be certain times, certain tools in your data centers, and you need to talk about them. And that only increases a notch above when you're using microservices, because microservices, all these microservices talk to each other on APIs. So how do you secure those APIs and give API security to your customer? So that is an end-to-end Zero Trust platform or a Zero Trust architecture, right? And that's something that you need to understand. If there is one slide I want you guys to walk away from today's session, is this. This is how you deploy end-to-end security, which is called a Zero Trust security for your data center. So let me go back to your data centers and open up your data centers and see what this is. And typically, the moment there is, you see what happened? There was a breach in your data center, one small breach in your data center. And typically, that's how a security element is. The moment a breach enters into a data center, your entire data center is available for him to move towards to and affect all the elements of your racks, of your servers, of your network, of your VMs. And this is one of the fact check that I again did was there are over 4,000 attacks every day, which is not a joke, right? And every 11 seconds there is a new org which is falling victim. And a lot of time the organization may not even know, because every ransomware or every malicious activity, on an average, we need 190 to 210 days to detect that we are affected. And by that time, that malicious activity or that ransomware would have spread everywhere into your data center and affected multiple of your elements. And most often or not, there is an exfiltration that has already happened, and it is on a verge of doing encryption. So how do we stop this? Because if I have to put this in a block diagram, what we are talking about is the elements where attacker has access to, right? The elements that attacker can weaponize for launching an attack, and that's north-south, because you don't control internet. And some of these attacks, and most of these attacks come from internet, right? So north-south is something that you're not able to, the internet is something that you're not able to control. And from there, through the north-south traffic, something enters into your data center. But once it enters into your data center, east-west is something which is under your control, because you can then control what amount of element can flow into your data center and who can talk to whom and who cannot talk to whom. And that's what you can control. So that is your defender's advantage. Well, attacker's advantage is obviously the internet, which is free internet, and all of those attacks vector can come in. So let me again, show it to you in a chart form factor. And what I'm doing in this chart is also aligning some of the attack elements to MITRE ATT&CK framework. So MITRE ATT&CK framework has 12 tactics and multiple techniques. I think 200 plus techniques. So I'm going to be using a MITRE ATT&CK framework here and telling you what does a typical attack looks like. So what a typical attack looks like is, first, the attacker gets access to an endpoint through a zero-day vulnerability or any other activity. And I'm sure you heard about Log4j. You must have heard about the supply chain kind of attacks and multiple other attacks. So a malicious activity happens on an endpoint, and it affects the desktop or the laptop, and through that he gets access through a virtual machine. The moment he gets access to the virtual machine, what does he do? He kind of looks at what runs on an operating system. He looks at there's an operating system, okay, affected. He looks at the security agents who could stop him. He goes and blocks it. And then he looks at all the processes that are running on that operating system, and he kinds of affects all of them. So, and in the bottom, you can see that, what was happening was he got initial access, he did execution of the code, he did persistence, waited for it, and he did privilege escalation, which means he got root access. He went there, he stopped the agents, and then he got access, elements access to your processes, and he got credential access. And then what he's been successfully able to do is command and control, which means now he has his eyes and mind into your data center. Now he can pretty much do everything into your data center, kind of sniffing what ports are open, kind of sniffing what elements are available to attack, and then kind of do an exfiltration of the data that is wanting to. So problem two, once he's got access to all of this, right, he starts doing lateral spreads, which means he starts affecting all the other VMs. You saw all the other VMs started turning red. And then problem three, the data center network vulnerabilities, right? It started looking at those vulnerabilities from data center perspective. It started jumping the different segments that you would have into your network and started spreading. Why? Because most often than not, these attacks are actually using the legit ports. They are using the legit protocols. We all know about WannaCry. It was using an SMB protocol. So they're using legit ports and legit protocols, and it can jump over the firewall mechanism that you could have. And then obviously the last is, where it takes the data, it gets an unauthorized access and does exfiltration. So he's now got a copy of your data. And most often than not, this is when he actually does encryption of all your servers. And now, he's going to be asking you for some money to be able to give you the decrypt key. Now, the estimates tell me, and this market of ransomware and the amount of ransom that was paid somewhere in 2017 was roughly about $375 million. Guess what is the amount today? The amount today is nothing less than $20 billion. So from 375 million, it has gone to $20 billion just in a matter of 3 years. And why has that happened? Primarily because the way we are setting up our data centers, multi-cloud, access from anywhere, and so on and so forth. So now this is what scenario will, it'll show you what is actually happening in a data center, right? So we open it for our home offices during pandemic. We opened up multiple networks. We opened up on 5G networks. We opened IaaS SaaS, and that's why the $20 billion figure, and I'm sure this is just the recorded figure, the official figure. The unofficial figure must be much, much higher, because most often than not, these guys actually, ask ransom in cryptocurrencies. So that's where, this security challenge is today. And that's why we need to be cognizant enough to be able to deploy zero trust network security. So what does VMware do here, right? And I showed you some of the solutions in my previous slide. So solution one that we have is we protect the endpoint. Now VMware today has a solution called Carbon Black. Like I said in my previous slide, it's a leader in endpoint detection and response. We can deploy Carbon Black into your virtual machines to detect the malicious activity that could have happened, right? So in my previous slide, the way we saw, there was an attacker that got access to your desktop, and he put his elements there, and then he started getting access to your entire data center. I can go ahead and stop that through my endpoint detection and response. And endpoint detection and response can do multiple things. It can, it can look at your ransomware behavioral prevention. If it's a zero-day attack, I can still look at the way it behaves and give you a risk score in telling you whether it's a risky behavior or not, and so on and so forth. So that's what VMware does. Solution two, what we do is the east-west network, right? We saw that the moment there is a server which was compromised, the second thing, or the next thing that the attacker did was he started spreading it across. So east-west security is something that we deliver through micro-segmentation. And micro-segmentation, believe me, is not just limited to firewall ports and protocols. Like I said, the malware or the threats are getting very, very intelligent. So when I do micro-segmentation, I not only block it as per their protocol and IPs and other things, I also do signature-based detection. I do distributed IDPS. I can do virtual patching because of this, and elements like Log4j. So if you have Log4j elements spread across in your virtual machines, even if you don't have a patch today, I can actually go ahead and stop them, because I know the signatures of those attacks, and I can do that behavior in a distributed manner. And that's what VMware does through its NSX platform. And then solution number 3 and 4, which is, where I talk about the traffic is legitimate. Because the attackers are coming in through a legitimate traffic, I need to look at the traffic from a signature perspective and then stop that threat moment. And then last but not the least, the NT and NDR piece, right? I look at the NT-NDR piece, and I look at the network traffic analysis, and I see this is a zero-day attack, or probably I don't have a signature for this, but this looks like a malicious activity to me. And that's where I do network detection and response for my workload. And all of this put together, right? I can deliver a very, very high level of security for your data center, which could be again in your private cloud or public cloud, whichever way you would want to deploy this. And then these are some of the accolades that we have got over a period of time. And VMware NSX NDR actually scored the highest possible rating, 100%, by the triple and got the AAA rating. And this happened in August 21. We can share the report with you, right? The SE Labs, if you see on the right-hand side, actually gave 100% marks to VMware because we do not make any false positives. One of the main advantage of a distributed security solution like VMware is the false positives are absolutely zero. Because if you are looking for a log4j threat, and I'm not finding a log4j threat, I'm going to go ahead and say there's no log4j threat here. But in other solutions where you have security which is centralized, the problem is they are not able to find the context of the threat and the constructs of the workload. There could be a mismatch, and that's where the false positives happen. So like I said, the solution today from VMware that can give you is the EDR and NDR solutions that can help you deploy zero trust security, and both put together can actually give you XDR, which means they can detect any threat and response into your data center, be it your endpoint, be it your workload, be it your public cloud or private cloud. And this is consistent security, right? Because I don't want to lock my customers to a particular setup. I can't tell you, okay, you have to use only Windows machines, or okay, you can do it only when you're working out of a particular public cloud, or okay, you can do this only when you're running in your private cloud. No, it doesn't happen that way. I let my customers choose where their data and their application is, and I go to that every element to be able to deploy this security. And one of the most important thing for VMware is the data center security is agentless, right? Because I'm also the infrastructure provider, and if you are using that infrastructure solution from us, most often than not, you would be, right? Your virtualization solution will be VMware. So you will have these solutions which will be agentless, embedded into my infrastructure elements, because the way I show you the attack in my previous slide, the moment he gets access to a workload and he does his access, his escalation, which means he gets a root access, he's going to disable that agent. So I'm moving away from an agent-based solution and giving you a native intrinsic security solution, which gives you consistent security across any workload and any cloud. So your workload could be anywhere and you still have that security. So here is to summarize, VMware Zero Trust security. Your security cannot be constrained to a particular data center, to a particular application architecture, to a particular device. Today, you will have modern apps in your data center, which means you need to have modern app security. Now, those modern apps, in a normal layman term, you could also containerize a microservices, could run private or public cloud. You need security, right? So, which means you need a cross-cloud security, which is inside the cloud and also cloud to cloud. And then, your devices who are accessing those applications to your private or public clouds, that is where those devices or anywhere workspace security comes into picture. So I look at device posture, I look at the make and the model of the device, I look at what are the antivirus, I look at all the device posture, and then decide whether the access can be given or not. So this is in holistically what VMware can do for providing zero trust security, because security is not a point product. Gone are those days where customers used to buy security as a point products. Today, security is a system. And for that system to work, there has to be a cohesive environment where all these elements of security can talk to each other. If there is a device that is showing malicious behavior, your data center should know. So the context has to be passed to your data center, and then he should know that there is a malicious behavior somewhere in the device, and there should be some element somewhere in your data center who should stop it, right? So you need to share the context. It has to be integrable, and that is what VMware brings to the table. All of these elements that I spoke about, they're all integrable. So all my customers, if you want to start this zero trust journey, this is what I recommend. I recommend you to first start with your microsegmentation journey using our advanced threat protection. This is where you actually stop the lateral movement into your data centers, be it private or public cloud. And then you go to an enhanced SOC, right? I'm sure most of us, will be having a SOC or a SIM solution where you will have all these threat intelligence coming, or this events and alerts coming from multiple elements of your data center, and then there'll be somebody doing manual correlation. So what we are doing is you can do an enhanced SOC where the elements still need to come, but the correlation should happen manually, automatically. It should be in an automation or orchestrated form, because then you can apply algorithms and you can easily reduce false positives and look at alerts or events that are of importance to you. And last but not the least, federation of security. Security cannot be centralized. Security has to be spread across. Security has to be where the source is. Security cannot be just in a central site. So that's what the stage 3 is. So this is what the journey from a stage 1, stage 2, stage 3 would look like. And this is what I would want to propose to you on this work, on this session. Thank you.
What a great presentation. It is knowledge for us on how VMware has been working to secure the IT environment. Thank you, Vinay, for sharing the presentation. Thank you.
It was such a knowledgeable session from VMware. When businesses move to SASE and ZTNA model, they get secure, reliable, performance-optimized access for both traditional and cloud-based applications. Thank you, Mr. Vinay, for sharing the role of VMware in securing the enterprise.